So we had a great conversation today, I think, about engagement and the importance of it, everything from understanding it, understanding what it impacts in terms of business performance and outcomes, how we measure it, and I think a lot of very aligned thinking on the issues, not just the measurement, but most importantly, of what actions we have to take to improve engagement, and a very strong consensus of view around what we've got to do to empower and support line managers. Because at the end of the day, when one talks about engagement, it is principally at that level. It's principally between the team or the individual and their line manager, and how that all works together, that whole dynamic. Beginning with basic listening skills. Am I being listened to? Does the manager understand, therefore, my perspective personally? Are they, have I a voice in the organisation? But I always link it also in terms of what drives engagement to a lot of research and ideas that have been around a long time about what motivates people. It's just we haven't always enacted it in organisations, and we now see this stuff as being far more important. And it does actually begin with things like alignment and purpose. What's the purpose of the organisation? What's my individual purpose and sense of direction? And how can those two things come together? And of course, in this day and age, when we talk about purpose, it's a lot broader than what it might have been before. So, for example, this whole notion of corporate social responsibility, in that I as an individual, it's not just about coming to work to earn a decent wage. It's, I want to be positively impactful in that organisation about how we interact with our communities. The notion of mastery, how do I improve? And that in order to engage me, I need to understand where I'm going, how I'm developing myself, what the organisation is doing to help me understand how to develop myself, including things like resources for training and so forth. And of course, performance management and reward plays a part in that. And then the third idea is around more autonomy, which is a sort of very important trust issue. And of course, trust is a very central idea in engagement. First of all, do I trust my manager and the leadership? But secondly, do they trust me? And if I'm always being put in a tiny little box and given lots of micro measures about what to do, then that just tells me that fundamentally you don't trust me. And yet we know, as I said, going back to these principles of engagement, that some degree of autonomy, let me figure out the best way to work, is really important. And I think, again, in this day and age, we have so many opportunities to expand those thoughts into all these different ways in which we can work, whether we work from home, whether we work at any point in time, and this whole blurring of the work-life balance boundaries. So it plays out, and therefore I think lots of ideas about the future of workforce and the future of work. So a lot of very, very interesting themes, but I think it does come back to a recognition that these notions of engagement are very, very central to achieving a high-performing team and organisation and a sustainable organisation. And now is the time when I think we've got to take this stuff more seriously. But to come back to the theme of measurement, I'm a very strong believer that, first of all, what gets measured gets done. So if we can't measure engagement in ways that we can then educate our managers about and hold them accountable for it, then we're not going to make progress in that. Managers need to understand this stuff, but we need to enable them to understand it and understand what actions to take, and then hold them accountable for it in terms of their own performance measures. But it extends more broadly, this notion of measurement, now into the sort of wider human capital measurement, which is a subject that's been knocking around for a while, but I'm a very firm believer that now is the time to land this particular plane in terms of the debate about what should we expect organisations to measure, what's good practice, and what should we now start to be looking at in terms of external reporting so others can see what that organisation is doing. Not only to, if you like, that sort of peer comparison benchmarking thing, but again also to really highlight best practice. And if we understand some of the key measures of human capital measurements, such as engagement, and report on those things, then we can link those to ultimately to sustained business performance, not just short-term performance, but sustained performance. And at last, I think, begin to shed a proper light on what is often described as the intangible part of value of an organisation, around their people and what we invest in them. So lots of really interesting themes. I think, certainly in my role now at the CIPD, I'm very keen to continue to engage on these things. I think they're fundamentally important. I think the time is now to bring some of this stuff, which has sometimes been kind of seen a bit peripheral, or maybe just the domain of HR or whatever, into central thinking about how we run and build organisations for the future.